So this video is designed to give you a heads up on how to use the volumeter, which is a posh word for this. So the volumeter is basically a cork or a stopper, and inside that stopper is a 1 ml pipette that's been bent over. In fact, you can still see, if you look carefully, you can still see the graduations on this one. So this is a 1 ml plastic pipette that's been heated up, bent over, and put through a stopper. This is a piece of equipment used to test pressure changes in a closed system. It's used for both the photosynthesis and respiration labs. I'd certainly never used one before, but they're very easy to use. In order to use one, you need a test tube, such as this one that I pre-prepared, with a solution in it. And what's going to happen with the volumeter is that you want to put just enough solution in this test tube so that when you put the volumeter in, it contacts the solution. And as you can see, when I push the stopper in, it forces the solution up into the top linear portion of this tube right there. So now, as you can see, even when I'm holding my hand on this thing, just heating up the air inside the tube, you can see the volumeter move up the tube. So it's actually pretty sensitive. So the way you use this is you have the correct amount of volume in this test tube, so it forces the liquid up. And then once it's done that, you can put a mark on the tube where the liquid is at the start of your experiment, and then time however long your experiment is going to be done for, and measure in centimeters the distance between the mark at the beginning and the mark at the end of the experiment, wherever that may be. It's important to tell students to measure that distance with a ruler. They're not relying on these numbers, which can confuse them, because they actually, of course, designate volume when this thing was used as a pipette. So that's basically how you use it. On some experiments, specifically the respiration ones, it's worth noting that in the time that they do their experiment, for the very active cultures they use, this will proceed to the end before that time is up. So it's important to tell them when they're comparing their control with the experimental one, they stop the control at the same time as the experimental one gets here. Meaning, if it takes 2 minutes for this to get to the end, they will stop them both at 2 minutes and measure the distance traveled for both of them. In this case, the distance traveled would, of course, be from my first mark to the end of the tube. And so that's how you use them. They're very easy to use. One of the problems that you might run into with these things is that, well, there's a few, but most of the problems are due to this seal not being good. So when students have odd data and they come and ask me what is going on with this experiment, I ask them to repeat it using a different test tube, a different volumeter, and then I look to see if there's any obvious leaks in that volumeter, because sometimes there are. So that's really where most of the problems come about. And that's it, really. So that's how you use a volumeter.